he has an upper class standing, but he hasn't had the playing time or the experience of game field play this year to make it work for him. Same thing with Shaw and everybody else. Rich Rodriguez said this in his press conference on Monday. He said, "We are all inexperienced." Because every player on this team right now is in a new offensive system, and no matter how many years they had under their belt with Lloyd Carr, it's not the same. And that inexperience shows when you make those unforced and mental errors like Michigan did on Saturday.
All right, well, let's talk about experience. The strength of this Michigan team is supposed to be that defense. The experience, Morgan Trent's played an awful lot of snaps. Stevie Brown's got some snaps under his belt. Donovan Warren's got some snaps. I mean, both the last two guys, on the younger side. But boy, those play-action passes just burned us over and over again. You take away 2 or 3 big passes by Notre Dame, that's their entire offense for the game. I mean, what about that experience on defense, Andy? Where is it?
It was something I talked about last week on our show. I really thought that, the defensive line was coming along. Well, the front seven in general. And, this game just showed me that the Wolverines weren't ready to perform, up to the level that we were billing them to. They didn't have a sack. Jimmy Clausen went without being sacked the entire game. Last year, I don't remember the stat, but, he was sacked 8 times. It's definitely something that the Wolverines really need to see more of, and, that experience didn't show last week.
Well, and how about that? We're supposed to be, the front seven especially is supposed to be great. Now, you look at the second halves, things are great. Now, what's happening in the first half that we can't correct?
Unfortunately, the problem is we're having to go in at halftime and look at what it is they're missed coverages. They're young guys who aren't picking up their assignments. Play action passes will help confuse those younger guys. And people like Morgan Trent can't, they can't do it all themselves. And as a result, they have to get that help. People have to stay on their assignments and not get faked out. They have to know their job and responsibility and keep on it. And that takes time. And unfortunately, what's happening is they're going in at halftime and saying, you blew this coverage, and they're being able to make those adjustments. So it's good that they're making adjustments. What's bad is that it's taking them an entire half of football to figure it out.
What about that, Andy? I mean, can't they adjust from Sunday to Friday to whoever's coming up to play?
Well, I disagree a little bit on this point, considering that in this Notre Dame game, the monsoon struck after the first half. There was only 7 points scored for either team. Michigan didn't score either, and it was on a fumble return for a touchdown by Brandon Smith. We definitely can't judge this game as a continuation of that trend, considering we don't know what would have happened had there been prime offensive conditions.
That's a valid point, but the cynic would say that Notre Dame did rush the ball rather effectively in that second half, running out the clock on us, which is, of course, again, run defense should be a good thing.
And note, too, it's incredibly difficult, especially if you're on defense and you're young guys, to be put in the situation that the Wolverines were put in. When the first 2 defensive opportunities they have to stop Notre Dame, and they're already in the Michigan zone, that's a lot of pressure, and you have a lot less room for error, and I think that cost them a lot as well. That's those 14 points. Yes, you can blame the defense, but you really have to say that goes back to those turnovers again and special teams play, and that the defense just, unfortunately got the bad end of that stick and couldn't capitalize.
A valid point as well, and let's start to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Sam McGuffey arrived in this game. He really did. He lived up to the hype. He did what he was supposed to do. It seems like they finally figured out that his strength is not running between the tackles.
Well, I'm pretty sure any recruiter out of high school, coming out of high school, could have told you that. I guess it took a little bit for Rich Rod to figure it out. But, the guy, 25 carries, 131 yards, rushing, that big 40-yard touchdown on the screen pass definitely showed, what he's made of and, what the Wolverines can expect out of him for the rest of the season.
He had 100 yards in the first quarter alone. McGuffey carried the load. He got 25 carries, and when you have the depth that Michigan has at running back, it's nice to see one guy come up and like our quarterback position as of late, step up to the challenge. And McGuffey has done that. He's taken the load on his shoulders, even as a true freshman, and said, look, you give me the ball and you provide me just a little bit of blocking. I will look at my assignments. I will find my blocking schemes, and I will get those holes. And time after time after time, he has improved in that area. Rich Rodriguez and the offensive staff have seen that in him, and as a result, he's going to continue to be the starter, and he's going to continue to get those carries because he's continuing to get the job done.
Yeah, and speaking of getting the job done, I have to say, though, the patience, is something that you saw from Sam McGuffey in that game. He was waiting for his blocks to develop. You saw him, just run right into the sideline a lot of times, but speaking of arriving, Stephen 3. I mean, can we put this issue to rest? I mean, is he the man? I mean, it seems pretty clear. I mean, despite that one fumble when the game arguably was, out of hand at that point anyhow, he played very well.
He is the man. Rich Rodriguez has said that he will be the starter. He's earned that position. He was 16 for 23, 175 yards, and a touchdown. He has not thrown an interception yet, which let's look at Nick Sheridan, who, while he was perfect against Notre Dame, was perfect in throwing the ball twice to the Golden Navy. So, that's just a poor stat for Nick Sheridan. My thing with Threed is, while he was named the starter, look for Sheridan to continue to be an important part of this offense, especially if there's problems with momentum. Rich Rodriguez has no qualms at all about pulling his starting quarterback and putting Sheridan in at any time during the game if he feels like the momentum needs to shift and that Sheridan could bring that. So while Threed is the obvious starter, that does not mean that he will be your all-time, game-long, starting full quarterback.
And how do you feel about that, Andy? I mean, Michigan's always been the one quarterback system. Brian Griese, Tom Brady, John Navarre, Chad Henry. There was never any debate about that.
Not true.
Well, I definitely feel like we really need a one quarterback set. They may not have been true always in the past. However, I still feel like Stephen Threed needs to be playing every down all game long. I don't see need for Sheridan to be coming in, especially with all these mistakes. He showed some real poise out there. His completion percentage was near 70%. That's really impressive for a freshman quarterback. I mean, I really think that he's definitely what we need around.
Well, that's, for me too, I would like to see that because that's what we're used to, but that doesn't mean that that's going to fit into Rich Rodriguez's new offensive scheme. So I think we need to see that develop more. They only have about half of their offensive plays in the books and able to be used. Maybe when those develop further, it'll be helpful and better for Sheridan to step up to the plate and get some playing time in. We'll just have to see. You never know. We could end up like a Florida offense from last year, and that could be good.
Well, while Saturday was pretty depressing for Michigan fans, there was one game we could take solace in, and that was Ohio State just getting absolutely embarrassed once again on national television against USC. We're going to talk about that coming up on Varsity Blue. Welcome back to Varsity Blue. Alex Prasad, Caitlin Urka, Andy Baina. There you go. I'm not even going to say his last name anymore. It's just Andy over there. Let's talk about this OSU-USC game. I mean, I was a little depressed after the Michigan game, obviously, but a 35-3 just pasting at the hands of USC has got to have fans in Columbus, just knock down a peg or two.
I mean, they scored first.
They scored first against Florida, too.
They did. I'm not the type of person that takes a bunch of pleasure in seeing them get destroyed by someone. I'd rather see us destroying them. It's something that I think fans shouldn't be doing necessarily, with their biggest rivals. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not a huge fan of that. I was semi-happy to see them lose. Granted, they don't have Beanie Wells. I mean, I think they're pretty bad, but we'll see how they progress through the Big Ten. I think they're definitely a team to beat in the Big Ten still.
And that's true. I think another one of the big things to look at is the fact that they're in the Big Ten. And you don't want the Big Ten Conference in general to be knocked down a peg because of their performance against USC and not someone out of conference. So I as much as I'd love to see Ohio State lose, I'd rather it be a close game rather than the 35-3 shellacking. But Ohio State and Michigan, they're the two normal Big Ten powerhouses, and instead, if you look at the statistics, they're both coming in last and dead last places in pretty much every offensive and defensive category thus far. And granted, they played different competition than the rest of the Big Ten, but still, you usually see them up there in the statistical sheets. And the performance has just been lacking this year. So it could be an interesting year for the Big Ten, some shakeups, maybe see some other teams step up and fill the void while both Ohio State and Michigan use this year to kind of rebuild.
Well, let's talk about the Big Ten and Ohio State and Michigan rebuilding, folks. Were you sitting when you said that, or was there an earthquake in your dorm? I mean,
what did Rick Rodriguez say? We'll get back to where we belong soon, hopefully, sooner rather than later.
So let's talk about the Big Ten. Let's say Ohio State and Michigan. Well, we know Michigan's down for sure. Ohio State, I think the jury's still out. But let's start with the Buckeyes. There's some guy that almost came to Michigan, Terrell Pryor. Maybe you heard about him. Yeah, I never heard of him until last week or something. But I mean, he's got to play more, right? I mean, if their offense is so anemic, you're going to see Ohio State